You're listening to Strange by Nature, your guide to the strange, weird, unbelievable, and improbable wonders of the natural world.
Hello, everyone, and thanks for being here today. I'm Kirk Mona, and joining me are Rachel Gimza and Victoria Thompson. We're all naturalists who together have scoured the world for weird and wonderful wonders, just to please your mammalian brain's desire for novelty. Isn't that nice? Let's do this. Hey, everyone, welcome to the show.
Hey, good to see you.
Yeah, how we doing this week?
Oh, hanging in there.
Oh boy,
we're going. It's good. It's good.
I'm not starting with a particularly happy topic, so I was hoping we're having a better week. So, okay, this one's not an upper, but it is interesting. So
good.
We're just gonna jump right into it. Some of you may know that I mentioned the show. I frequent Reddit. As far as the social media sphere goes. I do enjoy perusing lots of different subreddits, including some of the ones like "What is this thing?" or "What is it?" Where people post photos
of fun.
Strange stuff, and they're like, "What the heck is this thing?" And the internet sets to work trying to figure out what they have. There's so many diverse people on there with varied interests that something that may seem completely obscure to you might be like an everyday object to somebody else. And it just never ceases to amaze me how someone can put up something and you're like, no one's going to have any clue what this is. And they're like, oh, that's the torn off corner from this obscure Japanese candy bar. And you're like, well, how? Okay. Like,
how would you know that?
Right. And because for them, it's an everyday thing. Maybe they live in Japan. Maybe they just ate one of those or it's their favorite candy or something, right? So it's always an interesting place to hang out. Well, a week ago or so, I happened to see one of those posts where someone I think they were like renovating their house, but they found like a glass bottle that had been hidden away, I think, like literally in a wall. They had like a built-in.
Oh no! I saw that post. I saw that post. Oh my god!
They had a built-in set of drawers. They were kind of demolishing out of their house, and they found this glass bottle like in the stud wall, and this kind of brown glass bottle had like some cryptic instructions on it. The bottle simply it had like almost like a typewriter type font written label on it, and the bottle simply said at the top, Agent B. And the directions were kind of hard to read, but they said something about adding Agent B yourself, like adding it to a drum, rolling it around, etc. And actually, when I first kind of skimmed by, I thought they were like, almost seemed like they were instructions to a person called Agent B. And this user has stumbled upon some sort of like espionage poison bottle or something like that.
Right.
That is not at all what it was. But in a weird way, it's also not that far off. As Reddit does, it only, I think, took a few minutes for the correct answer to be posted, along with copious warnings to not even touch the bottle, even with gloved hands, and to call the proper authorities immediately to figure out how best to dispose of it.
Yeah.
I'm glad it was only a few minutes.
People were like, don't open the bottle. And the person's like, well, the bottle is smashed. Like, it's already open. And they're like, don't touch it. So Agent B is not a person. It's a substance. In this case, the active ingredient was actually listed on the third line of the bottle, but it was kind of easy to miss because of how it was all typed up. The bottle contained something called Panagen 42. And Panagen 42 was a liquid seed disinfectant sold by Morton Chemical Company out of Chicago, Illinois, back in the 1960s. I will quote here from the National Institute of Health website, quote, formerly used as a pesticide in seed treatment for cotton and small grains, exhibits high fungicidal activity against leaf stripe of barley, stinking smut of wheat, which is an outstanding.
I don't love that.
I sort of feel like Stinking Smut of Wheat may have to be the show title. Snow Mold of Rye against seedling diseases in beets and legumes and for dressing seed potatoes, bulbs, and tubers, end quote. So basically, it was this amazing stuff you could put on seeds that could kill off all of these diseases. And you're like, okay, cool, but what is Panagen 42? Well,
why
was not it good? It's not.
It's
good.
Essentially methylmercury, which
those are two not good things.
Is one of the deadliest, most toxic substances on Earth.
Oh no!
It is very effective as a seed treatment, but applying it is dangerous, and you can end up with
really. Who would have thunk?
Yeah. And you can end up with seeds that, while they can, and at least theoretically safely be planted, they absolutely cannot be eaten by humans or fed as feed to animals. And sadly, use of methylmercury to treat seeds led to a horrible tragedy, what is now known as the Basra poison grain disaster. And that is what I am talking about today. So in 1971, the Iraqi government bought 95,000 tons of wheat and barley from Cargill. And they specifically selected grain treated with methylmercury. So they knew what they were getting. It was shipped both from the United States and Mexico because they ordered a lot, or maybe there's two grains, maybe they each came from different countries. And it was intended to be distributed to poor farmers, either at cost or for free. However, due to shipping delays, it didn't get there until October, which was after farmers had already planted their crops. Now, these bags had warnings in English and Spanish that the grains were poisonous. They also had skulls and crossbones on the bags. And the grain itself was dyed pink to warn people that it had been treated with poison. The Iraqi government promised that every farmer that took the grain would have to sign a document and leave their thumbprint on that document to show that they fully understood that this grain was poison and not for human consumption. You could plant it and grow crops with it, but you couldn't eat it yourself. However, sadly, no one made the farmers sign anything. Most of them actually did not, turns out, understand why the grain had been dyed red. None of them spoke English or Spanish, and the skull and crossbones does not have the same meaning in Iraq that it does in a lot of other places. So a lot of miscommunication, a lot of missteps, and this grain was all given out. And sadly, because, I keep saying sadly, this is a very tragic story, because of when the grain arrived, the fields had already been planted. And so many of the farmers are like, well, what are we going to do with all this seed that we just got? Let's just feed it to our livestock or feed it to our families. There's even some stories that farmers heard this grain was coming and were worried that the price of grain was going to drop. So they sold off their stores of grain and then replenished them with this free seed that they had gotten. And they were kind of like, this is weird that it's red, but when they washed it in water, the red dye seemed to wash right off. So even if they maybe knew that it had been treated with something, well, the red washed off, so the poison must have washed off too, right? It did not. Now, methylmercury is a strange and highly toxic substance. It can cause a whole host of problems, even in small doses. But the doses these farmers and their families got were not small. Even if they had simply planted it, some sources suggested that the dust kicked up from planting in such a dry place also was spreading mercury into the air. So this was a bad situation. Once the grain had been handed out, it took between 16 and 38 days for symptoms to start to show up. And the families just kept on, because it took so long for it to show up, it's not an immediate thing. Families kept on using the grain over and over and over and getting repeat exposures. Apparently largely due to making bread. People were baking loaves of bread with these grains and just feeding it to their kids and eat it themselves. people started to show up at the hospital with a loss of balance,
Right.
with vision problems, and then eventually, if it was bad enough, with central nervous system failure, sometimes even leading to death. And what's kind of tragic about this is the doctors knew what the cause of this was pretty much right away, because this exact same thing had happened a decade earlier in the same part of Iraq.
Oh,
What?
no.
Yeah. On a smaller scale, but they had seen these symptoms before and were like, oh, this is a grain, poisoning from this methylmercury. So the good news with that is that they did pretty quickly have a good idea of
At least they know
how to treat these people. It wasn't this mysterious what's going on. So they were able to treat some people essentially for heavy metal poisoning and try to do like chelation and stuff to get some of this out of their bodies. The government also sprang into action and said they tried to confiscate any grain they could find. They said anyone selling the grain would be arrested, which you would think would be a pretty smart move, except that made a lot of the farmers really afraid to even have the grain. So a bunch of them panicked and they dumped the grain into the Tigris River.
Oh, God.
Thousands of,
what they should have done was offer to buy it back. That's so dumb.
Yeah, that would be a much smarter solution there. This then polluted the river, caused even more sickness, and the government then tried to cover up what was happening. As you can imagine, it did not make them look good. And what this means is that the final numbers for this tragedy are very hard to come by. The official death toll is set at 459 people, but experts believe the actual number may be an order of magnitude larger than that. So it may have been closer to, 5,000 people that may have actually died from this. And that says nothing about, the number of people who are injured. Also, there's sort of a custom in this part of the world that when people are very, very sick, often you don't take people to the hospital. Someone's going to die, they're going to die at home. So a lot of people, I think, who died just never even went to a hospital or were never even seen or accounted for. By some estimates, it's thought maybe as many as 100,000 people may have suffered brain damage from the incident, and that includes children and babies, which is an absolutely horrifying and staggering number.
That's awful.
Obviously, lots of investigations and, trying to get to the bottom of how did this happen, what happened. And it was, when you're shipping stuff internationally and things aren't printed in the correct languages, things are going from person to person. The final person getting it is not the person who ordered it. It was no one thing that really caused this to happen, aside from, putting a deadly toxin on a food product. In the wake of this disaster and others, the use of methylmercury as a grain fumigant has been forbidden and is now considered methylmercury is now considered a priority hazardous substance. The World Health Organization actually met in Baghdad in 1974 to come up with a plan to make sure this sort of disaster never happens again. Here's the deal. Mercury is really, really bad. But and an important thing to remember, though, is that it is completely natural. And I think this is a really potent reminder that natural does not equal safe or good. Methylmercury is a naturally occurring substance. It can actually be released by volcanoes, for example. And it's a good reminder that there are plenty of natural things that are toxic, and we probably should not put those things in our food. So really sad story this week, but really interesting combination of, somehow something that is a naturally occurring substance, when we learn how to make it in large amounts and use it in the wrong way, can have some pretty unintended consequences. My sources this week were the World Health Organization, the National Institute of Health, the journal Science, and a big source is the book Diagnosis Mercury, Money, Politics, and Poison by Jane Hightower. So pretty interesting stuff, but pretty sad.
Sad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, hopefully my co-hosts have brought something a bit more uplifting this week. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, it'll be Rachel.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. So I was thinking more and more, and we're on episode 228, and I don't know how we haven't covered any part of this.
I love these ones.
I love these too. So we're going to have to go deep diving for some of the species here. I'm just doing a general overview. I'm just going to touch base on a lot of these. But first, story time.
Okay.
As many listeners know, I recently moved away from Lake Superior, which is one of the Great Lakes, the greatest lake.
The greatest lake.
In every
The most
way.
superior of the lakes, yeah.
Haha. The most superior, yes. And it'll always have a little piece of my heart. It's where I taught environmental education to all kinds of audiences. You know, being a naturalist, that's what you do.
That's what you do.
Yeah. One of the classes we would teach at the site I was at, and it makes complete sense, is the history and the watershed of Lake Superior.
There you go.
More focused on the story and journey of water and things like that. But to really understand, we had to show why Lake Superior itself is so special. So for our audience here, I'll let you know. Lake Superior is one of the 5 Great Lakes in North America. Can't miss them. They're in the middle of the country. If you look at a map, there they are. Lake Superior is actually the largest lake in the world by surface area.
Yeah.
It's about 10,000 years old, and it holds about 3 quadrillion gallons, which is 15 zeros.
It sounds like a lot of water.
I had to learn. It is a lot of water. You put a 3, and then there's 15 zeros behind it, and that's 3 quadrillion gallons. I know this because I had to put it up on a chalkboard and figure out what that amount was.
And before other states ask, no, you can't have any.
No. No, you cannot. It's about 50% of all of the water that the 5 Great Lakes hold, which is nuts, and it holds about 10% of all fresh surface water. So that's all water that's on the surface of the planet in the world. So it's 10% of all fresh surface water. It doesn't include any frozen or any that is underground. These are all lakes, streams, ponds, things like that.
Right.
We would compare this lake to 2 other lakes, right? Because it's the largest by surface area. So we would compare Lake Superior to 2 other lakes, one of which is in Africa. It's called Lake Tanganyika.
Okay.
And the other one is in the south end of Siberia, kind of in the middle of the Asian continent. And it is Lake Baikal.
Yes.
Both of these lakes are much older. Like I said, Lake Superior is only about 10,000 years old. But Lake Tanganyika and Lake Baikal are both rift lakes and are millions of years old.
Okay.
That being said, let's talk about Lake Baikal, y'all.
Oh, you're going to talk about Lake Baikal, not Lake Superior.
Yes, switcheroo there.
That took a left turn.
Thank you. Now, Lake Baikal is the oldest freshwater lake on Earth at anywhere from 20 to 25 million years old. Now, for those of you, which is the oldest lake in the world, which is wild. But what's cool is one of the reasons why it's so old and why it's as deep and big as it is because it's a rift lake. So a rift lake, in very general terms, rift lakes are where a continental plate has weakened and some like magma, there's like micro shifts that are happening. So parts of the continental plate that is Eurasia, started to like split a little bit and created a giant like crater almost. So pretty much a big giant valley with high mountains and cliffs along the edges, creating this rift. Now the rift itself, the lake and now is filled with water, but Lake Baikal is,
its
surface area. It's very big. It is a crescent shape and is about 12,000 square miles in surface area. Right. Lake Superior is much bigger than that. Yeah. Obviously, it looks like nothing special, right? It's just this thin little crescent. However, for comparison, I want you to remember So Lake Superior holds 3 quadrillion gallons.
Yeah.
Yep, three
Lake
quadrillion.
and is 10%, and 10% of all of the fresh surface water.
Yeah.
Lake Baikal, this one lake in Siberia, holds 6.2 quadrillion gallons.
It's so deep. Oh my god.
This one lake
Right.
holds 20% of the world's fresh surface water, which is more than all of the Great Lakes combined.
And it's been there for so long, too.
It's been there for 20 to 25 million years.
Oh. Think of the time, like, for systems to establish themselves and species to evolve and, like, just fantastic.
Yeah. And because it's a rift lake, it is actually seismically active. There are some hot springs that happen, and there are earthquakes that happen as well every few years.
Nice.
So because it's a rift lake, it has different like depths, but the average and at its deepest is 5,387 feet deep.
Wait, that's the average?
That's the max depth.
Oh, okay.
The average depth.
I was like, oh my God.
No, the max depth is 5,378.
Okay.
Or 87 feet.
Yeah.
The average depth is 2,442 feet.
Average depth.
Okay, so still a ridiculous number. All right.
Oh yeah, it is so deep. I did do the math on this. That is at the max depth.
Yeah.
That is 1,022 Rachels.
Oh, appreciated.
Yeah. So there's a lot
Rachels.
to be said about Lake Baikal. Is so many Rachels. There's a lot to be said about Lake Baikal. Like I said, it's the oldest, it is the deepest, it holds the most amount of water. It's the 7th largest lake by surface area, I guess, which is wild. Just because it is actually really long. I said this, it's a little over 12,000 square miles. It is very, like the coast itself, it looks like a crescent moon, which is really cool.
Sure.
So because it's active, it does widen about a 6.16 of an inch per year. So about 4 millimeters a year, the lake actually widens.
That's
just a little bit.
That's not much.
It's not much,
No.
but like geologically speaking, these rift areas are the beginnings of like an ocean, like millions and millions
like
of
a
years
continent
in the future,
splitting
right?
apart.
Yeah, eventually that's going to be the spot of a new ocean, which is wild. Lake Baikal is really, really cool. Obviously, it is a pretty hot tourist location at this point because of how amazing it is. It's also one of the clearest lakes in the world.
Oh, interesting.
During the winter, which is like when you can see a lot more of the lake, you can typically see up to 130 feet down, which is
what?
Really far down.
130 feet?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And like typically in like the summer, it's about 25 feet deep, which is still a lot in my opinion.
Do you think that's due to like things living in the water column? Like,
yeah, it is actually. So you mentioned this, Kirk, but Lake Baikal is actually really fascinating in more than one way. It's super rich in biodiversity. It's been there for so long that a lot of species and things actually rely on and only occur at that space. There are more than 1,000 species of plants that only are found around Lake Baikal, as well as about 2,500 species of animals, which is insane.
That's a lot.
That is a lot of different species. When it comes to animals, and I'm sure we'll talk about this, but it has the only freshwater seal known to us, aptly named the Baikal seal.
What a name.
Only occurs in Lake It only occurs in Lake Baikal, and it is pretty nuts. Like, the Baikal seal can withstand some pretty solid or some pretty amazing temperature fluctuations. Generally, like Lake Superior, because of how deep it is, the lake is not warm, Lake Baikal. Generally speaking, it can go anywhere from -2 to 57 degrees Fahrenheit. And for those listening in Celsius, that is -19 degrees Celsius to a max of 14 degrees Celsius. So it is not a warm lake.
No.
Nope.
We said a max of 14.
A max of 14, which is 57 degrees Fahrenheit. Yeah, that's pretty cold. I can attest to that. And it does freeze over, actually.
Okay.
From time to time. It is not like the widest part of the lake is 30 miles wide. So it is wide, but it isn't wide. So it does freeze over for like half the year, which is pretty nuts.
Interesting.
Yeah. And yeah, so like the Baikal seal definitely should be covered on its own. It is truly the only freshwater seal and deserves its own little episode because they're really cute, cool, and they're really, really cute.
Cool.
They rely on a species of fish that is also amazing that only lives in Lake Baikal and is like a translucent type fish. There are, Kirk, you will love this, but there are 236 species of birds that live in Lake Baikal.
Amazing.
And some of them are definitely endemic. There's the Baikal teal, as well as the Baikal bush warbler. They're widespread. They don't just live there, but there are many birds in that space.
Let me ask you this, Rachel. How many species of dandelions grow around Lake Baikal? Let's cut to the chase here.
No idea. I didn't look into that, actually.
You didn't look into that? Amazing.
I didn't look into it. There's just so many cool things that have to do with Lake Baikal.
Okay, fine.
A lot of it. Yeah, there's a lot of like aquatic flora. There's algae species. There's more fish. There's 65 native fish species. More than half of them only occur in Lake Baikal. Like, we could really go into just the amounts and the differences.
We could really get in depth with all the...
we can. Thank you.
Welcome to the Lake Baikal podcast.
Haha. Yeah, you can have a whole podcast just on Lake Baikal. There's even islands on Lake Baikal and in Lake Baikal. There's like 27 different islands, which is nuts. Sure. And people live out there, which is also a wild choice. It is a really amazing lake. And I couldn't believe that we hadn't talked about it yet. So I had to talk about this. In addition, there's two little last pieces that I wanted to talk about, that I wanted to touch base on. Is it actually, something that's really unique, and like Lake Tanganyika, which is how do I say this? It is a lake that actually like separates into stratified like spaces.
Yeah.
Even in deep sections of Lake Baikal, it's rich in oxygen, which could very well be because of how the lake is like structured and how much like aquatic flora there is. So that's really cool. It doesn't happen very often. And the other piece that I wanted to like touch base on, I said the Baikal seal, but there's also another species. The largest species that occurs in Lake Baikal is actually the Siberian sturgeon.
Oh, yeah.
the sturgeon does exist in Lake Superior. That's a different species, however. But it can measure more than 6.5 feet long, which is too big for a fish.
Well, fish can get bigger
For
than
a
that.
freshwater.
Okay.
Well, yeah, I do know fish can get bigger than that. It is too big for a freshwater fish, in my opinion. But that's because I'm used to panfish.
Sure.
I do think that they're really fascinating. Obviously, we can go on and on, really go in depth, as Victoria said, about Lake Baikal, and I'm sure we will find random weird things to talk about in the future about Lake Baikal, but I had to bring it to our attention. So,
Cool.
Without further ado, my sources this week were Britannica, Wikipedia, the Lake Baikal website, as well as the American Fisheries Society had some really fun articles, and some of my previous knowledge from my last workplace.
Your brain. Good.
Right.
My brain. Okay, so we are going to take a quick break, and when we return, it'll be Victoria.
Hey, we're back. You guys remember that last week I talked about hermit crabs, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Well, one of the cool things about them being that their bodies are asymmetrical because of the shells they live in.
Right.
Yeah. And I know, as you mentioned, Rachel, I did talk about animal symmetry. It was back in episode 170. But
Okay, yeah.
today I want to talk about animal asymmetry.
Hey, there it
Ooh,
is.
yay!
Yes.
Good.
So most...
Adding some symmetry to our asymmetrical podcast.
Thank you. Maybe it's to go with the symmetry of your double dandelion episodes.
Yeah. I have no regrets.
All right. Anyway, most animals are, of course, symmetrical in their outer body plan. And individuals that are not often have something that happened to them either genetically, developmentally, or due to some kind of trauma. So, yeah, I thought it would be interesting to talk about species of animals where being asymmetrical is the norm. The truest example, of course, of an asymmetrical animal is the sponge, which a lot of people don't realize are even animals because they don't look like what we think of as an animal.
They look like plants.
They look like plants or funguses or something. They probably deserve their own episode. I'm going to speak very briefly about them. Some are actually radially symmetrical, but many kinds are truly asymmetrical, and their body plan develops in order to best promote water flow through them, so it can depend on the currents that are around them and so forth, because they're filter feeders. That's why.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the animals that I'm going to talk about are what I would call partially asymmetrical. So they come from groups of animals that have overall body plans that are symmetrical, but these species have developed asymmetrical adaptations for specific purposes, or they have parts of their bodies that are symmetrical, but then there's like one specific part that's asymmetrical.
Okay, sure.
So besides hermit crabs, there are several other types of crustaceans. One is fiddler crabs, which we mentioned briefly last week, where with the males, one of their front claws is massive and the other is small.
Okay.
If you've ever eaten a whole lobster, you might have noticed that one claw is slightly larger and more blunt, and the other is slightly smaller and sharper and pointier. So those are actually specialized for crushing and cutting, respectively.
Okay.
There's another less well-known type of crustacean with mismatched claws from a group called the Alpheidae, or snapping shrimps. So similar to a mantis shrimp, they can use their larger claw to make a loud snapping sound. And then the other one is smaller. And sticking with the arthropods, there's a group of insects called thrips, which, by the way,
thrips.
I just love the sound of that word.
That's a great name.
Yes.
Yeah, their thrips are weird.
Yeah, I thought about doing an episode about thrips at one point, and then I couldn't really pull it together. But anyway, one thing that is very unique and interesting about them is that they have asymmetrical mouth parts. So one of their mandibles,
That's weird.
yeah, one of their mandibles is reduced or sometimes totally absent, and the other is used to cut into the plants that they eat. It's, you can look, there's some pictures you can find on the internet, and it's not that obvious because it's kind of fused together in a way. But if you look at the underlying pieces, I guess, you can see that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sure.
they're asymmetrical.
Sure.
Okay, moving on to a different group of animals. Within the fish, there's one very obvious group, the flatfish.
Oh,
The
yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
The flatfish.
So
They're
flounders,
so-
I'm
soles,
looking at you,
weird.
flounder.
halibuts,
Yeah.
creatures like that. When these types of fish hatch, they actually look very similar to any other type of fish larvae, symmetrical, swimming upright.
Mhm.
And then as they undergo metamorphosis, their eyes migrate to one side of their head. It just is so weird. It's so strange.
It's so weird.
And then, yeah, they the other side of their body becomes the downside, and they just stay eye side up on the bottom of the ocean for the rest of their lives.
So strange.
Yep.
They're such weird
It's
creatures.
so wild. Like, why?
Yeah.
Flounder from Little Mermaid really got me thinking something else. That is not a flounder.
No, it is not a flounder. Another type of less dramatic but still asymmetrical fish is a cichlid fish from Lake Tanganyika,
Yeah.
Perissodus microlepis. It's a scale-eating parasite, which I did not know that was a thing. They eat scales from other fish.
Lovely.
It's like a stealth, and then sort of quick attack. And for some of them, their mouth faces a little bit to the right so that they can more easily nab scales from a fish's left flank. And then the other half of the population, their mouth faces a little left so they can grab scales from the right side of the victim, which is kind of wild.
Really cool.
That is very cool.
Knew of them a little bit. I know some of them are used like in like home aquariums.
Oh, okay.
But I had not known about that little mouth quirk.
There's lots of different kind of cichlids.
Yeah, it may not be the same
probably
ones
a different
people
kind.
use in the aquarium trade. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of the cichlids are from the Great Lakes region of Africa, so you're probably thinking about a different species, I would guess.
No, I think most of them are from Africa. Yeah.
No, I'm saying the specific species in aquariums is probably not this parasitic scale eater.
Yeah, probably not, because you need to.
Odds are low.
Otherwise, it's going to eat the other fish in your aquarium. Yeah.
Yeah, that feels like a bad idea.
It does feel like
as
a bad
an
idea.
Aquarium owner.
Aquarists, write in. Let us know.
Okay. All right, getting into your area, Kirk, there are a couple birds with asymmetrical bills.
Oh, yeah, crossbills.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The crossbills,
I've seen those. They're cool.
They're a type of finch, and they're found across the northern hemisphere, different species. There's a couple that show up here sometimes in Minnesota. They are all cone seed specialists. So like pine cones, fir cones, that kind of stuff. The tips of their upper and lower bills cross in different directions. Just allows them to successfully pry open the scales.
Wild. You're like, what?
Yeah.
When you see it, it's truly like, excuse me?
You're like, oh, that's a mistake. That shouldn't be.
You good?
Something wrong with that bird. It's like, no, that's
something is missing.
They all look like that.
Something. How do you do things? Yeah.
Well,
it's so cool.
They're very good at prying open the scales of pine cones and other.
Yeah, they're good at what they do.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And another is the wrybill, so WRY, wrybill, a shorebird found in New Zealand whose beak tip
Love New Zealand.
deviates to the right at a 12 to 26 degree angle. It's so goofy looking.
Whoa.
Had you not heard of this one?
No, I hadn't. Wrybill, the name makes sense. So
yeah, it's a species of shorebird, and they eat a lot of like aquatic invertebrates and stuff. The exact reason why their bill is like that is not totally clear. I don't think there's been a ton of research done on it, but one hypothesis is that it allows it to like dig under rocks more easily to get little larvae and things.
Oh, interesting. Yeah,
It
I can see that.
looks like a little killdeer or sandpiper with its beak just curved. Looks like somebody like socked it and just bent the beak.
Totally. Or it got stuck somewhere and like wrenched it wrong.
We will try to include photos of some of these things in our newsletter for everybody to see.
Yes.
If you haven't signed up, go do it right now on our website.
There'll be
good stuff. And of course, most species of owls do have asymmetrical ears, although it's sort of debatable whether that's an external feature or not with birds, because you can't see the ear openings under their feathers.
Right.
I don't know.
If you lose your feathers, you can, yeah.
A couple asymmetrical mammals I want to highlight too. Of course, all of these things I'm saying, that this is not an exhaustive list.
No, of course.
But narwhals, their famous tusk comes out of the left side of their jaw, and it's a left-handed spiral. Sperm whales, sticking with the aquatic mammals, have only one nostril blowhole.
What?
Yeah, on the left side.
Okay.
The right nostril has evolved into what are called phonic lips, which
I don't like that.
allow the whale to make noises.
Phonic
so
lips. It's a good band name, I suppose.
I was looking at pictures of the anatomy, and I couldn't wrap my head around it, to be honest.
Okay. So like, I understand the use. I like what's happening there. I hate the name. Phonic lips.
Yep.
Yeah,
no.
It's not.
Not very fortunate name there.
Ugh.
And caribou have a little shovel-shaped projection near the base of one of their antlers. One of their antlers, but not the other. Yeah. Caribou, reindeer.
Okay. That's a good one.
Same animal, different names.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Moving on. There also is a snake in Japan that feeds exclusively on snails. And the right so the right half of its lower jaw has more teeth than the left, about 25 teeth versus 15 feet of teeth. I mean, so that helps it grasp and eat its asymmetrical prey
because of the spiral of the shell.
Because of the spiral, which of course brings me to the big group that I've left out here, which is the reason that these snakes and hermit crabs are asymmetrical in the first place, which are snails. So, snails have a helical or spiral shell, which are inherently asymmetrical as a shape.
Right.
Most species of snails have a right-handed helix, which is why hermit crabs also have a right-handed twist to their abdomens. Of course, spiral shells, these helix shapes are asymmetrical, but somehow they don't feel asymmetrical. To me, at least, in the same way. And I think it's because a spiral is a shape that has an inherent order to it. It's just not a symmetrical order. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's fair. Yes.
And
I'm with you on that, Victoria.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
To finish up with another mollusk, this was my favorite asymmetrical animal that I learned about while researching this episode. It is so weird. The cockeyed squid. Oh my gosh. Rachel, you're going to love this one. Have you heard of it?
I'm sure I will.
The cockeyed squid.
Gosh.
Yes, so as you might guess from the name, the two eyes of this squid look very different. One eye is sunken, blue, and smaller, and the other is large, domed, bulging, and a yellow-green color. It is so weird looking.
This.
It's so weird.
It looks so weird. I love this squid.
Big green
it looks like every
wild.
other. It looks like every other squid, but it looks like it's missing one eye. It's so fun. Why is it big, domed, and green?
Well, funny you should ask. So they live in the ocean's what they call the twilight zone, where there's like a bit of sunlight. It's pretty deep, but there's still a little sunlight, not much. Duke University biologist, Katie Thomas, looked into this and was able to figure out that larger bulging green eye faces upward and is able to detect shapes moving against the sunlight that filters down from above. The other eye looks into the depths of the ocean and searches for flashes of bioluminescence, which is
cool.
That's
so cool.
fun.
Very cool.
We're having some buffering
I love the
issues here.
ocean.
The ocean it's like, it might as well be another planet. I mean, it's just.
It kind of is, Kirk.
Yeah, kind of is. Yeah, it's like we live on a world that has 2 planets, the terrestrial world. Why did I say world? The terrestrial world and the oceanic world.
You're totally forgetting the atmospheric world.
Okay, fine. 3 planets.
Full of spiders, as it turns out. All right.
Yeah, and snakes.
Yes. Okay, well, that's my list of an episode this week.
Awesome stuff.
There was a
listicle.
There's a helpful Wikipedia page, also an article in Current Biology from June of 2009 on animal asymmetry, and a blog post from Duke Today about that weird squid. Oh my gosh.
It's so cool, though.
So awesome.
What a great squid.
Yes.
Thanks, Victoria.
Absolutely. I think I was the last to go this week.
You were.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
We did it.
We made
Yay.
it. We made it to the end of the episode. And so did you, if you're still listening.
Everyone.
Thank you.
I hope you are. Thanks for listening.
Wild. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone, for listening to today's show. Be sure to subscribe. New episodes drop every Wednesday, and we love sharing this strange world with all our listeners. If you would be so kind as to leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you get your podcasts, that would be great. It lets other lovers of the strange discover the show. You can reach us by searching for Strange by Nature Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and Blue Sky. You can send us an email as well. Our address is contact@strangebynaturepodcast.com. If you want more information about the show, you can check out our website, strangebynaturepodcast.com, and you can support the show and get ad-free episodes at patreon.com/strangebynature. Until next week, get outside, stay curious, and embrace the strange.